What the f do you mean it's common for husbands to take their wife or girlfriend on a freaking hike and leave them there? What do you mean that's common? What that every day there is a reason why I shouldn't be scared of men.
So alpine divorce and alpine abandonment, by what I could find, comes from a German word that basically describes somebody who's a much more experienced climber or hiker or athlete leaving a more inexperienced person to freeze or succumb to extreme conditions.
It makes you uneasy when you really try to wrap your brain around it. The more you think about it, the more you're like, you're just evil, like for the sake of being evil, right? Have you guys been seeing all of this craziness about these weird ass men getting charged for like leaving their women, their wives, their girlfriends, whatever, in like desolate places and just like abandoning them? And it's always like something like, oh, we got into a fight and I just told her I was gonna leave, or she got injured somehow, and then he went to go get help. Like I I've camped a good amount of times with my wife, like a handful of times. I'm gonna tell y'all something right now. Um, if anything happened to my wife while we were like hiking or anything like that, like we would die together. Like I would never I would never leave her. I just like either I'm going to carry her, right? I'm gonna get her out of there. I'm gonna carry her. I could carry my wife. I could pick her up, put her on my back, on my shoulder, something. Or we're both dying there. Or I might go off, like, you know what I'm saying, try to find like some leaves or something to warm us. Like, I'm not leaving her. I'm not about to just fucking leave my wife and be like, I'm gonna go get help. Like, bro, we're either both dying or we're both surviving. Period. I don't even, and it wouldn't even be like I would stay there thinking we were gonna die. Do you see what I'm saying? Like I'm staying there thinking I'm gonna save her by staying there. I'm just believing her doesn't seem like much of an option. It just that blows my mind. So I'm not understanding this. I'm not understanding, like the rationale behind like me. Like, how can you rationalize this? The only thing that makes sense is it's intentional.
What the fuck do you mean it's common for husbands to take their wife or girlfriend on a freaking hike and leave them there? What do you mean that's common? What that every day there is a reason why I shouldn't be scared of men. It's called alpine divorce or alpine divorce, something like that. Point is, it's a name for it. This is a common thing. They have a whole woman support group and everything. What is this? What is going on?
The diabolical nature of it all just is mind blowing. Because I cannot wrap my brain around it. I wouldn't even think to do that because I'm thank God. You know what I'm saying? Like every time I'm like, yeah, I'm capable of doing some crazy shit. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure. That's heinous. Like I wouldn't, I don't, you know, no, that's crazy. It's sick. And if you don't believe it, like if you don't know how deep it goes, I've heard, see, because I am a true crime, connoisseur. Again, my mom was a true crimer. I adopt, you know what I'm saying? It came to me. I inherited it, right? I used to watch fucking cops, and then we would watch, all the good shows, the unsolved mysteries, because we had basic TV, so we unsolved mysteries or whatever came on, forensic files or whatever. Like, yeah, I grew up watching that shit. Like, I think it is so interesting to see how the minds of these sick, twisted individuals work. And also just to make sure that my mind, I love to, I think that's what it is for me. I love to see it so I can be like, oh, well, I'm not that crazy. Like I'm neurospicy. I got some shit. It's everything, I ain't got all my marbles up here, but I'm not that kind of crazy. I'm a different kind of crazy. Because what the fuck is going on? Now I saw this story was sad. I went and looked on her page too. She didn't really have much detail. She ended up getting out of the situation, but it says, you go on a hike with him in the mountains, but he leaves you alone by yourself and you realize he never liked you to begin with. And she survived this, just FYI. This is a young lady, like 20, she 2019, maybe 21 years old. It's fucking nuts.
I know In the comments, someone refers to something called alpine divorce or alpine abandonment. So, alpine divorce and alpine abandonment, by what I could find, comes from a German word that basically describes somebody who's a much more experienced climber or hiker or athlete, leaving a more inexperienced person to freeze or succumb to extreme conditions. This isn't an entirely common set of circumstances that someone would be prosecuted for, but there are two different cases. Today, we're going to talk about Tony and Harold Hentworth. In 2015, Harold Hentworth would take his wife Tony, who is an ophthalmologist, up to a hike to celebrate their 12-year wedding anniversary. Tony was 50 years old at the time. Tony's husband Harold told her that he was going to take her on a hike in the Rocky Mountain National Park up Deer Mountain. They were originally going to go on a less advanced trail, but last minute they decided to go on a more rural trail that was about a 10,200 foot summit with much fewer people there. Harold and Tony set out, had something to eat for lunch, and then took pictures of each other before continuing on their hike. Harold took Tony off trail. This all happened at about 4:45 p.m. At 6 p.m., officers would receive a call from Harold saying that Tony had fallen off of the 140-foot cliff while taking pictures of the scenery. 911 dispatchers attempted to instruct Harold on giving Tony CPR, but the dispatchers would later note that he did not seem to be out of breath or panicked during the call, although he said that he was attempting CPR. He also said that he'd given her life breaths, as in mouth to mouth, and they noticed that her lipstick was not smeared. At 8 p.m., park rangers would arrive and declare Tony as having passed away. This case was originally ruled an accident, but as the investigators started looking into Harold's story, they started noticing inconsistencies. Besides the fact that it didn't seem that he had appeared any kind of CPR, during the call he failed to follow very simple instructions surrounding CPR and kept telling them that he was going to get off the phone to preserve his battery life, and that he had places and coordinates for emergency response teams where they could very easily land the helicopter for life support. Although he said that Tony had fallen while taking pictures of the scenery, they would go through her phone and find no pictures that he had referenced. He also told investigators that he was generally unfamiliar with the area, but upon looking in his car, they would find a map where there was a red/pink X where Tony had fallen. They would then find out through investigation that he had visited the area that she had fallen at about 6 to 9 times in the past few weeks leading up to their climb. His stories also remained pretty inconsistent. First, he said that Tony had fallen taking pictures of the scenery, and then changed his story to say that she was answering a work call on her phone when she tripped and fell. He also said that his phone was about to die and hung up very quickly with the dispatchers, but they would find that he had made an additional 22 calls and over 96 text messages following that phone call. Besides the fact that it didn't seem that he had attempted CPR, they also noticed that one of the diamonds in her wedding ring was missing, indicating signs of struggle. Jurors in court also noted that during the phone call they played with him and the 911 dispatcher, he seemed relatively unaffected during the emergency situation, and that he seemed pretty calm and unbothered. Harold also took Tony on this hike knowing that she was not an avid hiker and had recently had knee surgery and realistically could not physically make the ascent. Court documents would also call into question that a year before he had dropped a wooden beam on Tony's head, believing this may have been his very first attempt at her life. All these discrepancies in his story and the general inconsistencies regarding the circumstances of this would open up an investigation, inevitably leading to him being charged. Further investigation would reveal that Harold had taken out a life insurance policy of more than $4 million, with Tony's daughter as the beneficiary, but he changed it to himself being the beneficiary shortly before her death. Harold was also known by his friends to be a very wealthy businessman, but it was found out that he hadn't been employed since about 1992 and had been living off of an insurance policy. But it doesn't just end there. This investigation would open up questions about a previous wife, his first wife that he'd had, by the name of Sarah Lynn. Harold had been previously married to his first wife by the name of Sarah Lynn, who was a social worker and regarded by most people as a very kind person. Sarah Lynn and Harold Hentworth had been married for 12 years and a few months. They were driving down a heavily forested area when they had to stop to change their tire. Sarah Lynn and Harold had placed the car on a jack, and while they were trying to change their tire, a lug nut would fall under the car, and Sarah Lynn would go to retrieve it. While Sarah Lynn was attempting to retrieve one of the lug nuts, Harold would go on to grab one of the tires and toss it into the trunk, causing the car to lose balance and subsequently fall off the jack, crushing Sarah.
This is I remember both of these stories. Like I watched an episode and one I don't remember what show it was, but they brought this story up. This has been the point in this for me, that because like the video she just showed, that was a young lady that it just happened to. There's a story about the man in, I can't remember what country, not in America though, and he just got charged and convicted. He didn't get pretty much any time for doing it, but he did similar thing. He didn't push her, but he took her to this like mountainous terrain and then left her. Like men are this, it's really just crazy how often this type of stuff happens to women and how women are literally, I mean, and no fault of their own, just oblivious to how shitty men are. You know what I'm saying? Like you, I don't want to hear. Like, it's like, in one hand, people are like, "Well, you got to know men are shitty," and da 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 da. But in another hand, it's not all men, and society definitely applies that pressure to women to not judge men. You know, lump men together in this group of like, yeah, all men are shitty. So it's like it's a lose lose for the woman. And then if something happens to her, hopefully nothing is bad. But if something happens to her, we're just gonna go back and blame her, you know what I'm saying? Retroactively and currently. Like this shit is wild as hell to me.
In the car to lose balance and subsequently fall off the jack, crushing Sarah. Multiple passerbys, including a mechanic, would stop by to offer assistance. Harold would go on to refuse the help of the mechanic, which many investigators found suspicious. Multiple passerbys also attempted to pull Sarah Lynn out from under the car, but it was stated that Harold had routinely told them to not do so. One of the passerbys also stated that she had taken her jacket off to cover and offer warmth to Sarah Lynn, but had noted that Harold had not offered to do so. Sarah Lynn would end up unfortunately succumbing to her injuries, and although many investigators noted suspicions surrounding the circumstances of her passing, it was ultimately ruled an accident. However, due to Tony Hentworth's case, Sarah Lynn's case would also be seen in a new light, prompting one coroner to change her COD from accidental to undetermined. Remember the insurance policy he was living off of? Well, when Sarah Lynn passed away, he had gotten over $600,000 of life insurance policies on her, one of which was opened only 2.5 months before her passing. This would amount to about $1.2 million today. This was the money that he had used to upkeep his life and lie to his friends about him being a very successful businessman. Unfortunately, Sarah Lynn would never receive justice for what happened to her. In 2026, a different Austrian 37-year-old man would then be convicted of gross negligent manslaughter, resulting in the death of his 33-year-old girlfriend. Thomas would take his girlfriend Kirsten on a mountain summit where the wind chill and extreme weather conditions would leave the temperature at about negative 20 degrees. Police officers at the time were routinely monitoring for safety and weather conditions in the area. The police officer and Thomas would have a conversation during which the officer would tell him and Kirsten to keep moving. He also asked them if they needed any help, to which Thomas responded that everything was fine and abruptly hung up the phone. Shortly after, Kirsten would find herself in extreme weather conditions, leaving her disoriented and unable to continue the ascent. Thomas would leave his girlfriend there in an attempt to find them help. Her documents noted that he was a much more experienced climber than her, citing his social media where he had spoken about different climbs that he had done. They would also note that he had failed to put an emergency blanket over her that was found in her rucksack and also had not moved her away from the wind chill. Police officers attempted to call and text Thomas multiple times with no response. He claimed,
Like that's what I was saying before. I would never ever leave my wife. Like ever in a situation like that. I don't, it's probably dumb. You know what I'm saying? Like I probably am her best bet at getting help, let's say, right? I probably am, but I wouldn't even think to leave her. That wouldn't even be like an option to me to leave her. It's either like we're both getting out of here alive or we're both gonna die trying, right? So when men are like so like, oh no, I'm just gonna go get help, and I'm like, that, even if you meant it, even if you were like, no, I'm really gonna get help, like, I don't know, man. It's just some crazy shit.
done. They would also note that he had failed to put an emergency blanket over her that was found in her rucksack and also had not moved her away from the wind chill. Police officers attempted to call and text Thomas multiple times with no response. He claimed that he had turned off his phone to preserve his battery. Weather conditions continued to worsen until a helicopter could no longer be sent to rescue Kirsten. Thomas's girlfriend would unfortunately end up succumbing to the extreme weather conditions. A previous girlfriend of Thomas would also come out and explain that she had been on a hiking trip with him in 2023 where he had left her alone when her headlamp had gone out. She said this left.
So I'm just curious to know, is this dude doing this because he just wants to kill women? Or is he doing this because, you know, it doesn't make it better. I'm just out of curiosity. Like, is he doing this like on some serial killer shit? Like, he's like, yeah, like I've always had a dream of killing a woman this way. Or is he doing this because, you know, he's like, I don't, you know, I want to break up with her, but I don't, or I'm mad and this is like a punishment. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just so crazy to think that you hate women this much that you want to take, like you want to kill them, but you don't. And then also simultaneously, you're like, and I hate to use the word, but you're like such a fucking weenie that you can't do it in a conventional way, right? So you try to do it in this like really roundabout, but also very like much to me, much more cruel way because you know they suffered for a long time before they succumb to whatever elements, existed or that, that they were in at the time. Right. So if it's like hypothermia, thirst, hunger, you know what I'm saying? A bear, it's like whatever it was, like it's like you did it in this like very like slow, methodical. I don't know, man. It makes you uneasy when you really try to wrap your brain around it. The more you think about it, the more you're like, you're just evil, like for the sake of being evil, right?
Hiking trip with him in 2023 where he had left her alone when her headlamp had gone out. She said this left her deeply disoriented and frightened, and that she would never go on a hiking trip with him again. The judge would go on to say that he didn't see him as some cold-blooded, but that he had an obligation as leader of the group to notice and call for help when Kirsten needed it, as well as notice things like the fact that she wasn't wearing shoes that were adequate for the weather. He would routinely state that he was incredibly sorry for the loss of his girlfriend and that he had tried everything that he could to save her. He was ultimately found responsible for her passing because she was under his care with his experience and leadership, and he would be fined over 9,000 euros for her passing and also be given a suspended prison term.
Whoop-de-doo. Whoop-de-doo. That's it. And there are so many women that have stories like this, y'all. If you guys go on TikTok, I'm sure you could probably find it on other places too. But if you go on TikTok and type in alpine divorce, there are so many women talking about this. Like this has happened to a bunch of women. And they survived. Most of them survived, but like it was obvious to them that a man took them somewhere with the intentions on leaving them there. Like, what the fuck is wrong with y'all? What's up, bro? This is crazy. This is just I don't even know, man. I really and truly I just don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with men. I have no idea. I have no idea. I mean, I want to blame the patriarchy for most of this stuff, but the fuck is that? You know? Why would you do why not just leave her? Why not just divorce her? Why not just I don't know. Why not kill? I mean, why do you have to kill somebody? Why do you have to kill a woman? And that's why anytime you kill a woman, it's a hate crime. You know what I'm saying? Like 99.9% of the time, it's a hate crime. Almost never are you killing a woman in self-defense. So every other time you kill a woman, you did not need to kill her. You did that because you hated that woman, without a doubt. Like the if it was a hate crime in Austria to kill a woman, if you're a man, it would automatically make the prison system like prison sentence like 20 years. That's what I'm saying. That's why we got to have those hate crime enhancements on things like femicide. Because it doesn't make any sense. Like why would I ever need to kill a woman? It makes no fucking sense to me.